Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
Kopitar wins it back to Clark to the middle. Edmondson scores!
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
High off the glass bar corner and kicks all the way down the ice. Armia speeds after it. Great play. Armia scores! Oh, what a play by Joel Armia! His return to Montreal.
Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome to All the Kings Men. I'm Jesse Cohen. Joining me today remotely, Josh Schaefer. How are you doing today, Josh?
I'm great, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
What city are you in today? You're on the 6-game road trip, but I'm not entirely sure what the travel schedule is.
Yep, so we got to Toronto late last night after the game, so hanging out in Toronto today, and then we've got practice in the game tomorrow before we go on to Ottawa and then DC.
Now, when the team's on the road and traveling, it's got to be easier to get into a city at, 2 a.m. after a big win like that than after a loss, yeah?
Yeah, for sure, especially when the flight's not that, or I mean, especially when the flight's long, obviously. This one wasn't a long flight, just going from Montreal to Toronto. But sometimes if the team loses, sometimes those shorter flights maybe feel a little longer than they actually are. Where for me, you know, I sat on the bus, got on the plane, updated some notes from that night, and that was it for me. And then the plane landed, and then I'm in the hotel.
But I mean, I can imagine even the littlest things. If the team, has a tough loss, something as simple as sitting on the tarmac for an extra 5 minutes, or the bus being trapped at a left-hand turn lane that goes a little bit too slowly, that, or just waiting for your bags to come out from underneath the bus, that sort of thing's got to just be 1,000 times worse if the team's in a bad mood. Yeah,
probably more so for the players than necessarily for us. But it's always interesting because when this is somebody's livelihood, like for these players, like this is their job, right? Obviously, but is it easier to move on after a regular season loss than obviously it is a playoff loss? Yes, but in the regular season, like especially like if they had lost the other night in Montreal and then had to pick it back up and then go play it in Toronto, is that an easy just switch off when you travel because nothing you can do about it now? It's part of the job. You got to go to the next place. I almost wonder if it's like you can kind of just switch it off and just do your thing. But I'm sure it's different for different roles around the team.
Yeah. But I mean, I've been around the team in enough settings, whether it was traveling with them on a road trip or, not when the players are there, but like at draft events and stuff, to know that, these quote unquote support staff, broadcasters, camera crew, etc., you're having your own evening, right? Yeah. So if you're on the bus and you're, and Daryl comes on, or you want to chit chat with Jim or John Kelly or Carlin or whoever, and if it's been a bad night, you've got to tamp that down, right? You can't be yucking it up and having a blast when the team, gets blown out.
I think that's one thing that you have to take note of, obviously. I just remember high school football and coming back from a road game. Like if we lost a road game, no talking. Right. Like you do not say a word on the bus ride home. So then, at this level, that's not necessarily the case. Working in the NHL is very different from playing high school football. But it is a little bit different. And I think it's because you've got so many games. Like this is part of the job. Like it's part of the life to do it. You got to play the game. You got to get on the bus. You got to go to the airport. You can't be expected to not say a word, but you're right. After a loss, if they had lost in Montreal, we may have had less to say to each other on the bus, probably more out of respect. Granted.
Yeah, well, that's it, but there's also shifting like environment. So for example, if you bump into Jim Hiller in the hallway at the practice facility, hey Jim, how you doing? Chit chat, blah, blah, blah. How was your weekend? How about this weather, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But if you're on the bus and he's sitting with the coaches and you're sitting in the back with the sports, it's like, no, you're not going to just chit chat it up. Even though the only thing that's changed is maybe 100 yards of physical space between where you would have bumped into him and where you're bumping into him now.
Yeah, and it's different because also, in the travel, you kind of said like, we're having our own day, you know?
Mhm.
So if I'm sitting in the back of the bus with Jim and John and, you know, our TV producer Hoover, and, you know, if we're sitting in the back of the bus, we're having our own night together because, you know,
Mhm.
we all worked essentially the same job that night. That's something we could be talking about. Players are sitting somewhere else on the plane. They're on a different bus, you know, whatever. It's almost like all these, it's like a cafeteria, you know, in school where like there's all these different conversations that are going on or people that are having the same day, but a very different experience, right? So they're all separated, but they do kind of, you know, bump into each other at times when you're, you know, getting on the plane or getting on the bus or anything like that. So it is different. But it's also very unique. It's an interesting dynamic. It's like, it's all part of the job. It's like, it's a cool job, you know? So it's cool to be a part of. But you know, it definitely is better after wins, I would say, because everybody, when they do interact, is usually in a better mood.
There's a phrase I'm going to use, and I hope it makes sense to people. You're also all sharing the same clock. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is like a broadcast, it may feel like a solid single entity, but there are so many different pieces of it. So, you know, the game is happening, but your broadcast is a totally separate, even though the broadcast exists to describe the game,
Yeah.
it's two completely different entities.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the game can't stop to focus on a fight in the crowd or watch the World Series. But for example, and this is how I wanted to start this morning, recently, I don't remember, it was what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Game 7 of the World Series is happening. And, you know, I've seen the clip of the Oilers game where the broadcaster announces that the Blue Jays have won the World Series and then has to correct himself a few seconds later. There are plenty of nights, and, you know, I've lived through it and you've lived through it, and fans know what, you know, that it happens, whether it's, you know, a jersey retirement night or, you know, Nick Nixon's last game as a broadcaster, whatever it is. There's plenty of times where you have to just fill space,
Yeah.
where you just are handed, you know, here's 15 minutes of space that you just have to fill, and you haven't planned for it. You haven't budgeted for it. There's no way of knowing when it'll be over. You just have to talk aimlessly. That I have found is easy enough to do, but I've never had to talk while focusing on something that I care deeply about that isn't what we're talking about. So, you know, how do you, obviously filling space is simple enough. You just come up with a thought in your mind and you just let your mouth run while your hands are doing other things and your body's doing other things. But how do you split your focus between a game that's on TV and a game that's happening live in front of you?
It's difficult, especially when it's the World Series,
Game
because
7,
that
no
was
less.
Game 7 specifically. Yes, I actually felt you know, I grew up watching the Dodgers. Our radio engineer Jake Warner is a big Dodgers fan as well. So if anybody has seen that video from the night that the Dodgers won of Jake and I celebrating, that was cool because we'd watched so many of the games together at that point with the start of the season going on. So that was really fun. But with that being said, Game 7 is going on during a Kings game. And for whatever reason, I actually felt during Game 7 that I was pretty good. Like I was not super. I mean, obviously, I was.
If you do say so
about,
yourself.
No, not. No, I don't mean like the broadcast was good. I hope the
Yeah.
broadcast was good. I have no idea. I felt like, me personally, I was fine during the game because, you know, the game's going on the ice, and I kind of just told myself, like, look, man, this is my job. Like, I gotta just be 100% on this. Now, that was a game where Darrell Evans was between the benches on the radio, not in the booth. So, you know, the monitor next to Darrell that usually has the Kings game on did have the Dodgers game on the entire night. And, you know, Jake was mixing the audio and then paying attention to that too. So that was, I just felt a lot more calm during Game 7 because I put, or at least I tried to put 100% of my focus into the hockey game. And then once the game ended, I was a nervous wreck about the World Series. So, I was glad that the Kings game ended when it did and that the Dodgers and Blue Jays went into extra innings so that I could actually pay attention to that. But yeah, it is something where you do have to kind of zero in and focus in on your job. You know, I can do a better job of acknowledging what's going on in the World Series. Like when the Dodgers hit the game tying home run with an out in the bottom or in the top of the ninth inning, and the place went nuts. While New Jersey, I believe it was, has a rush down the ice the other way, and Darcy Kemper's forced to make a save off the rush, and the place is going nuts because the Dodgers have just tied the game. That was one where I can say what just happened because I saw it out of the corner of my eye, or I saw it on the video board while I'm calling the game. And I think I said something like, oh, here comes New Jersey down the ice. Like, oh, if you hear the crowd going nuts, it's because the Dodgers tied the game. Anyway, saved by Kemper, something like that, where the players on the bench, obviously, it doesn't work the same way. Did you hear what Connor McDavid said after that game,
I
by the
did,
way?
yeah. Yeah, and it's something I've always wondered about, because as that game was happening, I'm not watching the World Series because, I'm perfectly happy to have the Dodgers win, and I, am thrilled for my friends who root for the Dodgers, but I don't have a personal emotional investment in it.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the game, and yeah, there's a play in the neutral zone, and the crowd goes crazy, and my first instinct is to look to see if there's a fight going on in the stands, because usually when there's an unexplained amount of noise from the stands, it means that there's a fight, or somebody's done something, or Bailey's doing something somewhere, or there's a celebrity. Like, I immediately scan the crowd, and I had to remind myself that night, oh yeah, of course, there's this other game happening.
Have you ever seen the clip from the Dodgers broadcast in 2014?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's such a cool clip because Vin Scully's on the call, and they cut the TV crew does a great job of cutting to the crowd of all the people wearing Kings jerseys, and they cut to the bar in like the right field pavilion of everyone going nuts, like right after Alec Martinez scored the goal. So like those things I always think are very, very interesting. And there's clips like that exist for a number of different things, for a number of different sporting events. But I think it's been cool the last few years to see the clips of the Kings crowd reacting to the Dodgers last year in the middle of the game. It happened in the second intermission in the Vegas game. And then this year, everyone stayed, not everyone, but like a crowd.
A lot of
stayed
people.
Late. A lot of people stayed late,
Yeah.
and the building was great. They let everybody stay if they wanted to. That was really cool. And they let everybody stay afterwards to watch the game on the video board. That's been really cool to see, because 10 years ago, it was Dodger Stadium going nuts for the Kings when the Kings beat the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final in overtime. So that I think it's been cool to see those clips circulating on social media and getting a lot of views. It's a cool thing.
Did you stick around in the broadcast booth and watch the end of the game?
I did. So I stayed, and then my fiance and a friend of ours were at the game, and they were sitting downstairs. My fiance is an Arizona Diamondbacks fan, so she was a trooper. But they were sitting downstairs, and at some point I was like, you know what? Meet me in the section on the concourse directly beneath the broadcast booths. So I'll take the elevator down. I'll walk out. We can sit in the seats and watch the game from there. Well, we walked out, and that side of the concourse in the seats was very full, and people were standing around. So I was like, oh man, we're not going to fight for seats.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I looked up, and Will Smith hit the go-ahead home run, and we went nuts. And then I paced for like a little bit. And then my engineer, Jake, had to run downstairs after the game ended. He texted me that he was back in the booth. So when he said that he was back upstairs, I was like, all right, we're going upstairs. So then we ran upstairs and we watched the game end there.
I made the mistake of going out and watching on the not the concourse, outside. I left the building. I didn't go down to the locker room. I didn't go to Jim Hiller's media availability. I just went outside and watched the end of the game, and then tried to leave downtown at the same time as everybody else. I don't know. Did you hang out a little bit at the building and let traffic dissipate, or did you try and fight?
No. Once the game ended and the celebration had kind of subsided a little bit, we left. We had another friend in town who was a big Dodgers fan, one of my close friends. So we ended up getting out of there relatively quickly after the game ended, and then went out for like a late dinner afterwards, which was fun to celebrate. But we got out of there, and the traffic wasn't too bad by the time we left. But yeah, I mean, that was just a cool thing to be a part of, to have the two different wins for the Dodgers happen while working a game at Crypto and in that kind of like community, in two very different ways, mind you, right? Like one of them was in the middle of a Kings game in the intermission, and then the other one was after a game and everybody hung out. So it was just very cool to have those two different moments and kind of be a part of them. Those are 2 days that I'm going to remember for a long time. Like I remember what I said on the air when the Dodgers won 2 years ago. I remember what the final score was in that game. I remember who scored in that game for the Kings and the Knights. Like, it's just something that I think I'll remember. Now, I think the result for the Kings this year when the Dodgers won was not as good as it was last year. So it was recent, but I already don't remember who had scored in that game for the Kings. But like, I remember the final score. I remember who it was against. I think New Jersey.
Yeah,
right?
was that the Kuzmenko goal game, or was that a different? Okay.
Yes, it was. Okay, so I was right.
Yeah.
So I do
All right.
remember.
All right.
But yeah,
I mean,
like,
I could be wrong. I'm just...
those are moments that I'll remember for a long time, just because it's really cool to have that kind of sense of community when something like that happens.
So let's talk about the Kings, because this is ostensibly a Kings show.
That's what all the Kings men is
yes,
for.
That's the reference.
Now I get it.
So the Kings were recording this the morning after the Montreal game.
Yes.
And we're 16, 17 games into the season now. And, generally speaking, 20 games is the sort of evaluation benchmark. Anytime you ask a coach or general manager or anybody, what do you think about the season so far? How's the team? What do you need? Blah, blah, blah. One of the automatic fallbacks is let's wait till the 20 game mark. We'll reevaluate at the 20 game mark, et cetera, et cetera. We're coming up on the 20 game mark. And I would argue that the Kings grade is probably like a B-, C+, and yet they have not fallen into a hole in the standings that would be impossible to climb out of, and they seem to be rounding into shape as we come up on the 20 game mark. Last night, I mean, I watched the telecast. Sorry, I wasn't listening to the radio. But I mean, everything I heard and read and saw fans saying, and it matches my opinion, is that was probably the best 60-minute effort that we've seen from the Kings so far this year.
Yeah, I think the 2 games that really stick out to me are the 2 kind of lopsided wins. The Winnipeg game at home, the shutout for Darcy Kemper. I thought that was maybe not the flashiest game for the Kings, but I felt like that was the most complete 60-minute effort. And I think, to me, I still kind of feel that way. Just because for that game, Winnipeg was the highest scoring team in the league, and the Kings gave them nothing. I mean, looking back at that game, I don't remember like a grade A chance thinking, wow, other than the goal that got disallowed 2 minutes in for Winnipeg. Like, after that, I mean, there's not a single grade A chance that sticks out to me of like, oh, Winnipeg should have had one there. Like, Darcy Kemper did not have to make any, like, he made the clutch timely saves. He didn't make an insane diving play where you think, wow, Winnipeg deserved that one, I thought that was the most kind of complete LA Kings style of game. I think that this Montreal game had like a little bit of everything, because first period was fine. It was back and forth, but it was fine. They end up going down 1-0 on a goal at the very end where it was a great shot from Josh Anderson, but one that the Kings would probably want back. Like, I think his shot went off a defender's stick. Those are tough ones for the goalies to read. But then the second period, I mean, that was just overwhelming by the Kings in the first 6 minutes. 3 goals, back to back to back. I mean, Sam Montembeault looked like he had blinked, and then all of a sudden it was 3-1 Kings. And like, I don't blame him for that. It was just the way that the Kings came out in that period. And then I'm going to go back to the second in just a minute. But in the third period, that was LA Kings hockey. That was just, I mean, they had the Habs had nothing in the third period for a team that is leading their division, that has been so good all season, that has this like feisty, youthful, fast, energetic, offensive roster, to come out trailing in the third period and generate absolutely nothing and just completely shut down by the Kings in the third period. That was LA Kings hockey. And then to have the Joel Armia goal when you got it just shot out of a cannon off the bench, that was the play of the night for me. And then just this very calm, cool, and collected Warren Fogle, Philip Deneau empty netter. I mean, that was the perfect third period. That you could not have asked for a better third period from the LA Kings. The part where I think that it wasn't necessarily the most complete effort was after the third goal in the second period, Montreal came back. Like, they were pushing. And I think that one was, Kings had a power play chance to go up 4-1. Didn't generate anything on the power play. And after that, I thought that Montreal was going, had gotten all the momentum back until their power play chance, and the Kings gave them nothing. And for me, that was it. Like in that moment, that kind of felt like, I think the Kings, like, they did what they needed to do to take the lead. They're going to have the second intermission coming up and they'll regroup. But the fact that they were back on their heels all of a sudden, Montreal was coming, and then boom, just take all the momentum back like that. For me, that was kind of like, they might shut this thing down now. And they did.
I'm glad that you used the phrase LA Kings hockey, because that was my takeaway after the game, was like, okay, that was an LA Kings win, right?
Yes.
That was a win the way that the LA Kings might draw it up. And when Montreal stormed back in the second after the 3-1 lead, I felt like that was kind of predictable. Like, of course they are, right? Like, they need to crawl back into the game. The only way they can do that is to just try and pour on the offense. And we know Montreal's got a bunch of young, fast players.
They're just a team I thought would do that in the third period too, and didn't.
Sure.
Yeah.
One thing that I have sort of stumbled on, and some people get mad at me and hate the idea, and other people love it and understand where I'm coming from, is the idea of a 1-goal shutout. And last night wouldn't theoretically fit the criteria, but because that goal that Kemper gave up was so bizarre is not the right word, but like, if without knowing that it might have deflected off a stick, because I didn't realize that, I've only watched the replay a couple of times, I just thought Anderson had just like a miraculous shot, like an unbelievable shot. It wasn't exactly from a dangerous area of the ice. He just sort of turned around, whipped it, and it went far, top corner.
It was a really nice goal. Yeah.
And then that was it for Montreal. And so looking back on it, I'm sort of like, all right, well, I don't want to say the goal was a fluke, because it wasn't. And yes, there was a turnover that led to it at first. But if that goal isn't a seeing eye goal where the puck just happens to go exactly where it needs to go, I don't think we're talking about that turnover. I don't think we're talking about that chance. It just becomes another sort of moment in a back and forth game that the Kings win 5-1 or 5-0, whatever it might have wound up being.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel like Darcy Kemper's rounding into shape. I think his record is 6-0-0 in games where he's got a save percentage above 900. And yeah, the Kings locked it down. The biggest issue for me, and you kind of grazed up against it in your recap of the game, is that the power play, something's got to be done, Josh.
Yeah, it's interesting because they had scored a power play goal in 3 straight games, but it hasn't really felt like it. And it's interesting because, and I'm sure other teams in the NHL feel like this too, when the Kings come out, they'll get a power play goal. And, the one in Pittsburgh the other night was a tough one. And I saw your tweet during that game. If they had held on and won that game, that kid would have made his NHL debut. That would have been a 1-goal shutout for sure.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, because I thought, I didn't think that goal, that young goalie, Murashov in his debut, I didn't think he was like overly remarkable, but he was good enough to win.
Yeah,
for sure. And the Kings turned it around in the third period. But that goal is a tough one for him to give up, and it was in no way his fault. Now, that's a power play goal that the Kings take. And here's the way that I look at that based off of what Daryl said on the air after the goal, and I agree with him. It's not the flashiest goal by any means. Kopi threw it from the corner in front of the net, goes off Parker Wotherspoon and past the young goalie. Ties the game. Yeah, it's a power play goal. It's power play goals in back-to-back games, 3 straight, something like that. So great. It's a power play goal. It's not very good. Do you chalk it up as a fluke? Here's the reason why I think that's kind of a fluky goal for the defense, but not for the Kings power play. At the end of the day, as Daryl said on the air, Kopi does exactly what he's supposed to do. He puts the puck to the front of the net, right?
Yeah.
And he puts it into a dirty area and it goes in. Now, if that goes through, maybe Perry tips it in, maybe he doesn't. We'll never know. At the end of the day, I think the Kings power play did what it was supposed to do in that moment. But here's where I think that other teams will agree and feel like their teams do the same thing, is for the Kings, I felt like that was a good setup on the power play. Kevin Fiala was great along the wall to just get the puck to Kopi, keep the power play setup working. After that, power play didn't have a whole lot. The game before that, the Kings score on their first power play. Kopi redirected the shot from Juice. After that, power play didn't have a whole lot. And that's kind of the thing where it seems like the Kings power play comes out once a game and will look pretty good. Even in some of these games where they come up empty on the power play, they'll come out, have one pretty good opportunity, but then the other ones, sometimes they're not even getting a shot. So I think that it's a work in progress. The one thing that I've liked from Jim Hiller the last few days, or the last few games, has been those minor tweaks on the power play. So Kuzmenko goes down, Byfield and Perry stay up. Last game, Kuzmenko's back up, Byfield's down. I think that, Jim Hiller said a couple weeks ago that the 5-forward power play unit was so good last year, he wants him to have a long runway this year. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be true while also mixing up the personnel a little bit the way that he has until they find what they want out of the top unit. Now, that could change again for the Toronto game, depending on when people are listening to this. Like, it could have changed by now. I'm interested to see what the personnel ends up being on the power play, because you've got these options there. It's just whether or not the unit is cohesive enough. Because again, sometimes you come out and you have a really good look and don't score, and then you have a power play that's not looking very good, and then the puck goes in.
Yeah, so in the Montreal game, it wasn't a power play goal technically, but they score on the delayed advantage. And I thought they looked better during that delayed penalty than they have on any power play up to this point in the season. I thought they looked incredible. The puck was moving around. Yeah. They were generating chances. They were keeping it away from Montreal. They wind up scoring. Again, a bit of a fluke, I suppose. I think that was the one that went off of Edmondson's skate, yes, to Byfield. That was the the delayed penalty goal. The issue for me on the power play is that whether or not they're scoring is sort of not the main concern for me. It's that they're giving up shorthanded chances. You talked about Montreal storming back after that 3-1 lead. Part of that is because when the Kings have a power play, they're giving momentum back to the opponent, and that's the problem, is that, when you have 2 minutes, even if you just take the 2 minutes off and you just stand around and pass the puck around the perimeter, at least you're not giving your opponent confidence, right? Yeah, like, you might not be generating scoring chances, but neither are they.
Yeah, and I think that some teams who have very aggressive PK units have shown that the Kings could be susceptible to those chances. At the same time, the Kings have a very aggressive PK unit, and they're second in the NHL in shorties this year. So it's the same kind of thing on the other side of the ice, where the Kings, when they are aggressive, will create shorthanded chances. I mean, how many shorthanded looks have the Kings had this year
that
have not even ended up as high danger scoring chances because somebody got back to break it up, or they shot wide, or the pass didn't get through, or whatever? Like, Kings could very easily lead the league in shorthanded goals. I think they're second now. But the thing is, on the other side, is it's very different, because in some instances the Kings are a little passive on the power play, and it could be as simple as a pass to the blue line. The one the other night against Florida, Adrian Kempe tries to keep the puck in on the blue line and kind of fans on it. That happened twice in the same game. Very uncharacteristic of him. First one was a save by the goaltender. Second one ends up beating Forsberg, and that was kind of the backbreaker, right? Was that shorthanded goal for Florida the other night. So some of them are like that, where maybe the Kings are a little passive and then they turn the puck over. Other ones are sometimes the Kings are trying to move the puck and somebody comes out and is very aggressive. That naturally would lead to some shorthanded chances. Now, if I'm another team and I have a very aggressive penalty kill against the Kings, there are two things to keep in mind. Number one, you're facing 5 forwards who could be susceptible to concede a shorthanded chance like that if you're aggressive, if you're on the puck carrier the whole time, if you can get the puck out of the zone and get behind the defense. The other thing is, if you overcommit, there's 5 forwards on the ice against you that are all more than capable of putting the puck in your net. So it's very interesting to see how some of these other teams defend the Kings' power play. To me, I feel like the Kings are almost a little bit better against an aggressive PK unit in terms of creating chances of their own, but maybe they are more susceptible to conceding opportunities as well. But I do think you're right. I think that it's not necessarily just the fact that the Kings' power play has been inconsistent offensively, but that they have given up some shorthanded chances, and that's absolutely where the momentum came back from Montreal the other night, because if the Kings don't score on that power play, maybe they still have a lot of possession of the puck right when the power play ends. Maybe they keep winning the faceoffs in that second period and keep getting shots. But when Montreal got those shorthanded chances, even though they didn't score, that's when they got momentum going their way again.
Yeah, like I said, it's if it hasn't already tipped, it's teetering right on the line between not being good enough, which is fine, I can live with that, and being, bad, which is not okay. One final topic I want to talk to you about. I asked fans a few games ago, how good does Corey Perry have to be to where when we talk about Corey Perry, we don't start it with, oh man, it's so weird, Corey Perry, ... And then we launch into it. So I promise this will be the last time that I start with how weird, because he's just been incredible and it has been weird. But I genuinely believe at this point, he's been so consistently good that it's not even worth having the weird part of the conversation anymore. He's just been incredible.
Let me just say that guy who was in San Jose and posted the TikTok or the Instagram reel.
Eric, yeah.
Eric, that's the funniest video I've ever seen. And the fact that it starts with, oh no, it happened. That's the second I saw that video, like you're looking at it and you're like, it's a hockey arena, whatever. It's right away when Eric says it happened immediately. I was like, this video is going to be about Corey Perry.
Right.
It is. Yeah. It's the funniest video. And as somebody who grew up watching Kings games, like, it's relatable. Like, it is funny. And I know I'm going to answer your question, Jesse, I promise. But I will say that when we were in Dallas and it was a nationally televised game, and I thought to myself after the game, one of my very close friends is a huge Ducks fan, and he texted me after the game, and I kind of thought to myself, like, what are the odds that Corey Perry's an LA King and me, who grew up a Kings fan, was the Kings broadcast voice soundtrack for that goal because it was a nationally televised game? It was just me and Daryl. And that was ridiculous. Like, it is, I don't know if it'll ever get normal until, like, if playoffs come around and Corey Perry's as good in the playoffs this year as he was last year for Edmonton, then it will feel more normal. But every time the guy scores now, it's just kind of like, you got to look around and be like, is this happening? Because this is crazy. Because it's not just that Corey Perry is wearing number 10 and a Kings jersey and scoring for the LA Kings. He's been outstanding. I mean, he has been truly terrific for the Kings since he's made his debut. So part of me thinks it's always going to be weird. I think my job as one of the storytellers for this team is to make it less weird. I think that it is a story. It is part of the story of the 2025-26 LA Kings that the guy who was public enemy number 1 for 18 years is now one of the heroes. But I do think at some point for us, when Corey Perry scores, it can't be a, do you believe this kind of thing? Like, it can't be on the air. So there is a balance to find, but I think it'll always be weird. But Kings fans, let me just say, if you're starting to like Corey Perry in black, white, and silver, it's okay. You can cheer because he's going to keep scoring goals, I think.
If that Dallas goal had been the first and then the second one didn't come for another 5 or 6 games, I think it would be weirder. But he's got 11 points in 11 games. And as I said somewhere the other night, his first 5, I think, were all basically the same goal, right? Net front presence, garbage goal, dirty area goals. But then his goal against Pittsburgh and was it Florida? They're both scored from 30 feet away from the net.
Yeah,
they're both scored on distance too. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, he's got 11 points in 11 games. I'm just finding it less weird every time it happens now. The more we see that he can do it from anywhere on the ice, the more that he just and last night in the Montreal game, somebody pointed out to me that he just didn't really have a role in the offensive side of the game, and he shouldn't have a huge role. Yeah, he's not meant to be the MVP. He wasn't a high profile, $8 million a year, $10 million a year type guy. It's just been a really pleasant bonus that he's got so many points in such a short span.
The Kings signed 2025-26 Corey Perry, not 2012-2013 Corey Perry. You don't need him to be the MVP. The thing is that he maybe is right now. You need him offensively on the power play. That's the big key for Corey Perry, is him on the power play. But so many of these goals and the impact he's made has been at even strength. So that's what I think has been really nice to see. I actually disagree with you, Jesse, a little bit. I think that it is weirder that he has continued to score at the volume that he has than if he had missed 5 games. I think
Long version, yes. I just mean
yeah.
when you're in the moment of it, you just get, for me anyway, I just get used to it where I'm just like, oh yeah, sure, Corey Perry scored again. Like, of course he did. He's 11
Like
points
it
in 11
could,
games.
I mean, he could really, if this keeps going, I mean, how it's just, I think it's weird. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Oh no, it
And
should be. It's weird. It just is.
yeah,
Um,
it just is, but it's fun. It's a really cool part of what this team's story is. And I don't know what the legacy of this Kings team is going to be. I don't know how far they're going to go and what the outlook for this season is going to be like in retrospect. But I do think that while we're in the moment, the fact that Corey Perry is an LA King and he's been so good through the first month and a half of the season or however long it's been, um, that is absolutely a storyline and part of the story of this year's group. And I think that is very, very interesting.
I mean, I could be doing the math wrong on the fly here, but I think he's on pace for 33, 34 goals this year with how many games are left in the season. I mean, that would be weird. I just had to talk
Heart
about it.
campaign is underway already.
I just say I had to
Buy
talk
your
about it
jerseys
because
now.
there's a lot of things going on that I wouldn't have expected this season. One is the success on the road, and one is the Corey Perry story. I didn't see it coming, Josh.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I think that he has helped balance the lineup a little bit too. So it's not even just the fact that he's been so good offensively and scoring goals, but the fact that the fact that he has balanced out the lineup. Also, I mean, absolutely massive for this group to get Corey Perry in the lineup right when Kopitar goes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Kopitar comes back, Warren Fogle goes down, and Corey Perry has helped kind of pick up the load, the forwards this whole time. And I think that that's really big. But, I'll kind of go back to something you said at the beginning. And I think that this is a group that is not necessarily getting the results to reflect how good I think the team is and can be. They are starting to get to where I think they want to be. Obviously, their home record is not where they want it to be, but you had said, you kind of have an idea, 20 games, right? I asked that very question to Ken Holland and to Jim Hiller last week. And Ken said, American Thanksgiving is usually when it's no longer early for me.
Mm-hmm.
And in a similar vein, without actually putting a date on the holiday, Jim said 20-ish games or so is when it's no longer early. And both of them said separately, I might add, that they feel like they're getting to playing LA Kings hockey. And the group has felt like that too, in the same way that like they lost to Detroit, they lost to New Jersey, they lost to Florida, 3 of the 4 games on the homestand. But they felt like those were 3 of their best games of the year up to this point, and the results didn't go their way in terms of how they were playing the game. A penalty here ends up biting you in the rear. You give up a shorthanded goal, your power play doesn't cash in. But like at 5-on-5 and even strength, they felt like they had been playing the way that they want to play, and the results didn't go their way. At the end of the day, like, I think they're getting close to where they want to be. Corey Perry's been a really big part of that. Andrei Kopitar getting going after missing some games with an injury is a big part of that. And you mentioned Darcy Kemper. He has looked like last year's Darcy Kemper his last 3-4 starts now. And I think that has made a world of difference for this group too. So they're getting there. They're getting there. And I do think that getting Corey Perry into the lineup has been a really big part of that as well, because it has really balanced out the lineup.
Now they just have to start winning at home. I lied. This is the actual last question. Okay. I spoke to John Kelly early in the season, right at the start of the 5-game road trip. And I asked him, how many points do they have to get on this road trip in order for it to be a good one? I think we both agreed that like 6 out of 10. I think that was the trip where they wound up with 9 out of 10 points.
9 out of 10, yeah.
So this is a 6-game roader. I think it's tied for the longest one of the season. If we had this conversation before the Pittsburgh game, I would have said I need at least 6 out of 12 points. They're already at 4. There's 4 games left. How many points do they need to collect in the remaining 4 games for this? For this, because it's obviously off to a tremendous start. What do they got to do in the remaining games?
Pittsburgh has been playing really well. They are injured. I thought that would maybe be, I don't think easiest is the right word, but Definitely game one of the trip for me felt most winnable.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain this either. Actually, I can a little bit. It's now 9 straight wins against Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like a winnable game too, even though the Habs have been terrific. Like that felt, it just, to me, had that feeling, even though they've been one of the best teams in the league. Every game I felt on this trip gets a little bit harder. Like the Caps aren't playing super well, but it's Alex Ovechkin, right? 900 goals, and that's still a very well-built team. They were good, but I think maybe overachievers last year too, trying to get back to where they were last year. Toronto is a tough opponent. Ottawa should be interesting. I felt like each game was going to get a little bit harder. Now you look at it, Caps have struggled. They had a big win last night, though, I believe. Toronto's now Austin Matthews, Anthony Stolarz both got hurt. I don't know what that's going to look like at the time of recording. So Pittsburgh had lost some guys, still a few guys out for Montreal. Now the Kings are fully healthy. Like, this is a road trip that I think I would have agreed 6 out of 12 would be good. Now that you've won the first 2 games, I do think that 6 out of 12 is still okay. But for me, it really depends on how you get those next 2 points. Because if the Kings were to then lose the next 4 games of the trip,
right,
then or if they were to win one, if they win in Toronto and then lose the next 3, I would say that was not a good road trip. If they lose and then win and then go back to California and the road trip is kind of over, but the stretch is still going, and then you go up to San Jose, regardless of that result, I almost think the road trip's a little bit better. So it is interesting. I would have said 6 out of 12. I think now 8 out of 12 would be a terrific road trip. Especially just when you look at the stretch that this is and the duration that it is.
I'm at the point now where my faith, and listen, I'm an easy mark. My faith in the theory of the club has been restored just based on a couple of strong performances where I'm like, oh yeah, they look like the Kings. I'm back in. Now I'm more interested in the tweaks that you were talking about earlier, right? The sort of minor tweaks on the power play. That's what I'm looking for now is like, okay, can you clean up the 1 or 2 question mark issues facing the club? As long as Darcy Kemper is going to keep playing like Darcy Kemper, as long as, the Laferriere, Byfield, and Fiala line is going to keep looking like that, okay, great. Fix the power play, and the results will come. I have faith in it. Josh Schaefer, thank you for joining us from the road. Really appreciate it.
Jesse, always a pleasure. Let's do it again soon.